Hello ladies and gentlemen to this Talking Rugby Union preview video of the Rugby World Cup that's starting in Japan this Friday. The tournament will kick off when host nation Japan play Russia at the Tokyo Stadium in Tokyo, and this video will have a look at all the pools as well as what we think is going to go down. We will even be sprinkling in some videos from the Premiership Media Days that myself and Chris have been attending. And we'll start off by looking at Pool A, which has been covered by our very own Gary Heatley, who is one of our most regular contributors on Talking Rugby Union. Right, and now we're straight into Pool A, which has been covered by Gary Heatley for Talking Rugby Union. That has Ireland, Scotland, Japan, Russia and Samoa. And we caught some words from Geordan Murphy about how he thinks his nation's going to be doing in the tournament.
And now just talk a bit about Ireland, of course the country you represented a fair few times. Number one in the world at the minute. How does that feel going into a World Cup?
I think it's pretty false, to be quite honest with you. I think, a year ago maybe Ireland deserved that title and they were on a real run of form. I think 2 losses in the last Six Nations last season kind of really set us back, and we've had a few injuries to key positions in the back row. And certainly this World Cup will really test Ireland, because I think, the form so far hasn't been exceptional, although some glimpses of quality rugby. And I think Joe Schmidt is an astute coach. He's built a very, very good squad, and maybe it's the best thing for Ireland. I'm excited about it. I think it's one of the best squads that Ireland have put together. In saying that, I think there's a lot of quality out there, and there's some big fixtures. I think Ireland will get out of the group, but then you've got a potential massive Southern Hemisphere fixture in the quarterfinals, which is going to be massive, and that'll be interesting, and I'm excited to see how we go.
Yeah, because that's the big speed bump, isn't it, for Ireland, getting past that quarterfinal for the first time. Do you think this year maybe is the year?
I would hope so. I would think if you had asked me that question a year ago, I would have said definitely. I thought Ireland were on form and looked like they could, take on anyone. That quarter-final now could be South Africa, could be New Zealand. It's two sides on huge form, so it'll be interesting to see how we go. I would be confident of getting past the quarter-final, but it's rugby at the end of the day.
Now, of course, so Geordie said that basically, even though Ireland are number one coming into this Rugby World Cup, it means very little in the grand scheme of things, because as we know, Ireland have never got past the quarter-final stages of a Rugby World Cup. So we're just going to kind of have to, we're just going to be quite general about this group really, because it's got the host nation Japan, it's got Scotland, Ireland, Russia and Samoa.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you made there, Joe. The last 2 World Cups, Ireland haven't managed to progress. I think 2015, a lot of injuries was the real problem, and you're looking at this pool and you'd expect on paper Ireland and Scotland to sort of progress, but we've seen how much Japan are first of all embracing this World Cup, which obviously they would be doing that, but second of all the way they've sort of played between now and when they first started preparations for the tournament has been really good and very eye-catching results. So Japan will want to try and cause an upset, but Ireland, he said world number one there, they will be favourites to get out of the pool, and I fully expect them to do so.
Well, even though you say that, we've got in front of us kind of their recent results. The one loss that they've had in the run-up to the Rugby World Cup is a 15 points to 57 loss to England at Twickenham. Yeah. We were both at that game. Ireland did not look like a settled team.
I don't know, I said when we did I think it was the video after the game, Joe, that I think because they hadn't played for a couple of weeks, or they had that week break, there was maybe a bit of rust. It was like maybe they were just getting back into the groove, and I think maybe the Wales game, the second Wales game in Dublin was where we saw Ireland sort of back to the best in a way. They did the basics exactly right, and that was what they wanted to build the foundations on, and that's something they will want to do over in Japan. So yes, that England game was a very bad result for them, and regardless of whether it's just a warm-up game, it wouldn't have gone down well with Joe Schmidt and the team. They came back, and the 2 wins against Wales would give them a lot of confidence, and yeah, they're number one in the world, and going into the tournament to beating the Wales back-to-back with the Grand Slam champions, that will give them some confidence.
Yeah, of course. Scotland, one of our other home nations officially, they've had a pretty good pre-season, I'd say. Their only blip really that loss to France in Nice, which was a 32-3
yeah, it's a blip, and I think it's becoming all too familiar in terms of Scotland. They've shown how good they can be at Murrayfield, and they showed that in that game against France, but they can't seem to sort of do that away from home. They can't seem to get the form away from home, and that could be a massive disadvantage for them. We're just looking at the way sort of the pool comes to fruition. Scotland played Japan last, am I right in saying? Or yes, Scotland played Japan last. So, and you'd like to think that from a Scotland point of view, that they are going to get wins against Samoa and Russia. That Japan-Scotland game could be absolutely massive if Scotland do fail to beat Ireland on the opening game on Sunday. So that's going to be Scotland's big thing. Can they step it up to the big occasion? And what a way to start on Sunday. But that final game could be crucial.
Yeah, 2 big wins against Georgia as well, but a few of those players actually haven't been selected for the Rugby World Cup squad. But anyway, moving on. Japan, number 10 in the world. I think they've actually probably had the best run-up they could have had coming into this World Cup. If you look at the results, so they beat Fiji 34 points to 21. I actually watched that game. It was very early.
That must have been like...
It was about 6:30. I was watching it. So I caught the last 20 minutes. They beat Tonga really heavily, 41 points to 7. And then they beat the USA to claim the Pacific Nations Cup, 34 points to 220. And then their most recent result, perhaps not a massive surprise, 7-41 against South Africa, loss.
I just go back to what I said before about the form, Joe, to beat a Fiji team, which I know we'll come on to in a bit, that people are saying they could really cause an upset. They are probably the favourites to potentially cause an upset at this World Cup. To beat Fiji 34-21, like you say, Joe, to then beat Tonga and USA, it's a big statement for them. We know Japanese rugby's on the rise. I know when they played England, was it last autumn? I can't remember, or the autumn before, when they came to Twickenham and played incredibly well in that first half.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of took a step back and thought, well, Japan have sort of continued the rise since what happened in 2015 against South Africa, and that sort of memorable tournament for them. And you know, speaking to Shane Williams,
name drop,
obviously. He was saying, because obviously he's been over to Japan in the build up to the tournament, he's played over there in Japan. He just said the growth of the game is continuing and only going in one direction, and they are going to be so excited for this tournament. And if Japan can do anything like they did in 2015, it's going to be an unbelievable tournament for them. So again, I look at that game, Japan versus Scotland. It could be huge for that pool there.
Yeah, of course, Japan kicking off against Russia this Friday, I think at 11 o'clock or something like that. BST, not GMT, we're not quite there yet. So we'll talk about those opponents. Russia, who have lost to both Jersey and Connacht in the lead up to this Rugby World Cup, not looking good for Lynn Jones's man. No,
but I mean, when we saw that Jersey result, we thought of one person only, didn't we, Joe? And Charlie Beckett. It was what a memorable sort of result for them. And I was actually driving in this morning and listening to the BBC podcast, and Chris Ashton at the end, Danny Carr asked Chris Ashton, he was like, who do you think's going to win? He said Russia, and it was just like, it was obviously tongue in cheek, and to be honest, Joe, I can't see them really doing much in this tournament. You know, do you put 20th in the world, losing to a championship outfit before this tournament is not the best ideal preparation for them, and you know, if they're going to potentially get something, it's going to be from those first two games, isn't it, against Japan and Samoa. But I can see them probably getting the wooden spoon of pool A.
Samoa, number 16 in the world, the final team in Pool A. They've lost. Oh no, they've only had one win in the lead up to the Rugby World Cup, which is a 25 points to 17 win against near rivals Tonga. Their other games: a close loss against the USA, a close loss again, I'd probably say, against Fiji, and then a pretty big loss against Australia, 34 points to 15. They lost that one. Samoa is one of those teams that. Are they one of those that could get that third place finish to try and secure automatic qualification for the next World Cup?
Very possibly, and if you're going off that logic, Joe, it's going to be down to that penultimate game, isn't it, against Japan? If you're going things off world rankings and on paper, etc., they could be targeting maybe that Japan game, thinking if we're going to try and finish in the third place, that's the key game for us. But again, I think it's going to be a very tough task when we know these sort of teams can step it up when it gets to a World Cup stage. So. Be interesting to see how they get on, but like you say, they're opening up. They're not involved in the first round of fixtures, are they? Because they're playing Russia on the 24th of September. So by the time they get into the tournament, their pool will be very much underway.
Yeah. So that's kind of all from Pool A. I think I'm going to predict Ireland, Scotland top 2 to get through.
I'd love it to be Japan speaking in there. It'd be great for the tournament, but I do think Ireland have got the quality, and I do think Scotland have got the quality to make it into the quarterfinals. But just watch out for that Japan-Scotland game.
Yeah, so let's move on to Pool B.
Joe's changed. Just quick. Just the magic of technology.
Yeah, so Pool B, in case you haven't guessed it, it's got my home nation of Canada in it. But it's also got New Zealand, South Africa, Italy and Namibia.
So obviously you've been keeping up with New Zealand's squad announcements and them leading the lead up to the Rugby World Cup. How do you think their preparations have been?
Yeah, it's always quite an intense environment, and I think Obviously they've just named their squad, so there's going to be a lot of happy guys in there, and also there's probably a few guys who are going for a bit of a tough time, missing out. I was one of those guys who missed out, and it is a tough time when you go for it, but now it's when it's all said and done, no one really cares, you know what I mean? Like a few years down the track, it's true what they say, time heals all wounds, and it goes away.
Yeah, because 4 years ago, obviously, New Zealand didn't win the Rugby Championship then, Australia won it, and then they won the World Cup anyway, so it doesn't really matter that kind of form leading up to it, as long as the tournament goes well.
Yeah, I think that's across the board, like, you can look at a team like Ireland who go hiding in the weekend against England, but at the end of the day, what matters is what happens in that 7 weeks, and if you end up being lucky enough to get to the big dance at the end of the tournament and win it, then no one's really going to give a toss about whether you got a hiding or not, or who won Six Nations or who won the Rugby Championship. If you're standing there with the World Cup above your head, then everybody else can just sit there and watch you.
The players that are going to the World Cup, and obviously you might prefer them to be here to settle into pre-season and hit the ground running for the season, but that must be really pleasing that your players are getting that international recognition.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I apologize. I said Scott Harris, Chris Harris. It's we're just waiting on to see what with Chris happen, and then it's great especially for Cal and for Jake, and for Willie, because he's still a newcomer in Test rugby, and by the time he's done a World Cup, he'll have learned a lot. Obviously a game like on the weekend, I don't think you can get a bigger challenge, playing Wales in the Millennium Stadium with the pressure that was on the game. So I've seen it in the past. We were fortunate when we started to get some guys into the Springbok side at the Lions. They come back and they got a lot of confidence of what they can achieve. So hopefully that will add to us. And then obviously we know Franco Mostert has been around that, so he will just bring back some more experience.
So I know you've been keeping a keen eye on the internationals. I saw you on Sky the other week. You've been enjoying that side of things throughout the summer? Yeah,
it's always tough, because I don't think you can, obviously say everything you always want to say, but I mean it's good. It's nice to watch the games. You would have watched it anyhow, and you get a bit of closer. And it's good to speak to Sean Fitzpatrick and Michael Liner and share, the knowledge that they've got about the game, and also how they see things are developing. And obviously you try and see what do you think that the performance of the sides is going to be. And watching the internationals, I don't think every side is playing everything at the moment. They're obviously hiding some things, but it's obviously it shows that I think the Springboks is definitely going to be a factor purely because of
how do you think they're going to get on
purely of the pack that they at the moment possesses. That they can put two packs up that can be brutal and physical, and you look at the front row and the locks that they can pick out. They're going to struggle to decide who's going and who's staying. So that's good, and be fortunate in the positions that leads the team. And we just spoke about the nines, that you've got Faf, Reinach, and the youngster Yankees, and then obviously the guys who played last year don't even make the squad. So the depth is very good for South Africa, but to me at the moment, the defence and the brutalness of the forward stands out, and I think we know that World Cups is close, and normally with the packs that decide it.
That's bottom of the pool for Canada there.
No. Okay. They've got more. We'll get onto this. I'll state my case as we get to it. The first team is the highest rated in the world rugby rankings at number 2 in the world, New Zealand. They've had a draw and a loss actually in the run-up to the World Cup, but then their last game was a 92-7 win against Tonga.
Yeah, I mean, I think with New Zealand, if they get angry, then it provokes a response, doesn't it? I mean, you've highlighted there quite rightly during the South Africa game in the Rugby Championship in Australia as well, and those two performances would have really frustrated Steve Hampson. Though this is his last World Cup, he wants everything to be perfect. He wants to sign off with another World Cup to his name, and I think the squad have said, right, let's sort this out. I mean, the Tonga game, they were always going to beat Tonga, but 92-7 I think it's quite the statement going into the World Cup, and for them, what a game to begin the World Cup. We're going to move on to them now, Joe, but what a game that's going to be to play South Africa, who have performed quite well against them recently.
Yeah, South Africa, of course, winning the Rugby Championship in the run-up to the World Cup. Recently played, as we said previously, in Pool A roundup. They played Japan fairly recently, winning 41 points to 7. But then they've also had a pretty good run-up as well. Of course, winning the Rugby Championship, unbeaten across that tournament, beating Argentina twice. Beating Australia fairly comfortably as well. South Africa, ever since they've started selecting players from abroad, they've been going alright.
I think if you looked at the odds, maybe April, maybe May time, to see what South Africa were, I reckon you'd get decent odds, and I would have been maybe put a bet on that. Since this great form, and as you mentioned, Joe, since they've brought these players in, they have looked back to the best. And you know, you mentioned the Rugby Championship, to win it for the first time in 10 years is what confidence does that give to the team? And I think they will now have to be in maybe the top 3, maybe top 4 bracket to go and win the World Cup, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've just got to look at the depth they've got in, well, we'll just say in one area in particular, which is, it's unavoidable, scrum half.
Yeah.
To have Faf de Klerk and Cobus Reinach, and then Francois Huha's retired and is still one of the best scrum halves in the world, it's not bad.
No, I've only was lucky enough to see Faf play against Gloucester for Sale at the end of the season. I couldn't believe how good he was. I mean, it was a crazy game and it was the end of the season game, but Faf was just exceptional that day. So that depth, and you know, Reinach has been outstanding for Northampton last season. He really was. I think did he win Player of the Month a couple of times as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was up there in the try scoring rankings and could do it all. He's ridiculously quick. Actually, his father was a winger as well. His father was a winger, and apparently he did 100 metres in something like 11.2 or something ridiculous. So he's an absolute athlete, and South Africa are really blessed, I'd say, across the field. Of course, Dianti unavailable because of certain issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean that will be a blow to South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, in the video with Johan Ackermann that we shown, he actually mentioned him, but what he did mention is what you've mentioned there, Joe, is they are blessed across the field.
Yeah.
You know, they've got some unbelievable talent, and Johan was there in the Sky Studios watching that Rugby Championship, and he will know exactly where the strengths are. So he was excited. He thinks this Springboks team can cause trouble, can be a menace in this World Cup, and it'd be fun that first game. And obviously our colleagues Max and Max are going to be in that first game between New Zealand and South Africa. I think it's in Yokohama, I may be wrong.
Ridiculous stadium, by the way.
Unbelievable stadium. That is a brilliant Saturday morning. If you're waking up, that is an unbelievable start to the weekend. So what a game that's going to be on the weekend.
Yeah, so we're going to drop 11 places down the world rankings now as we look at Italy, a team we actually saw play in their last warm-up game, which was a 37-0 loss to England at St James's Park. Their run-up to the World Cup has included a loss to Ireland in Dublin, as well as a pretty hefty win over Russia, and then another loss, unfortunately, to France at the Stade de France.
Yeah. I mean, again, name drop, Seb Negri. We spoke to him when we were up in Newcastle, what is it now, nearly 2 weeks ago, Joe, and what he was saying was Italy want to try and bridge this gap between themselves and sort of those leading other 5 Northern Hemisphere nations plus the Southern Hemisphere nations. The problem is they seem to be making small improvements, but we've seen against England they just weren't clinical enough in that first half. Yeah. They had the chances to put England, get in front, because England were very, very poor in that first half, and then eventually the game got away from them in the second half, Joe. And I think there was a stat after that game that Italy have now lost 20 of that 27 tests, I think it is. And if people are saying they're making improvements, it's tough to see that, but speaking to the people in camp, you can tell they are going in the right direction. Sort of the way the 2 Pro 14 teams played last year was encouraging for them. And the problem with this for them, and it's the same with your native Canada, Joe, is that they're in a group with New Zealand and South Africa. They will be, realistically, they'll be targeting those games away from New Zealand and South Africa to try and finish the pool in 3rd place. But you never know in the World Cup. But I think the gap that Italy want to try and bridge is still a little bit too big for them in this tournament.
Yeah, we'll move on to Namibia, number 23 in the world. They've only had, I think, I can only find 2 games that they've had in the run-up to the World Cup, which was a 30-28 win over Uruguay. Good win. Uruguay, very good team. And I'll explain a bit further why in a few seconds. And then a 20-0 loss to Russia.
Yeah, and we just literally slated Russia previously.
That's 5 tries. It's 4 tries even, isn't it? It's,
Yeah, I think you're looking at their first game, Joe, and I think that's what we take out of this. Is Italy, and that's Sunday, isn't it? And you've got Scotland, Ireland, and then England's first game against Tonga. But that could easily be one of the more interesting games on the Sunday, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to know exactly what's going to come out in Namibia. I mean, the thing is, the lazy guess that I'm going to make is that essentially it's going to be a lot of big men hitting each other. Which
as it was in 2015.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the key is, of course, that if Namibia eventually tie Italy out, I'm sure they've got the athletes in the back. I think their scrum half is on something like, this is his 4th Rugby World Cup, and he missed one out in between. So they've got the players. They have players that have been professional, that are professional, but a lot of them are just amateur.
Yeah.
That's the real problem they've got to face. And when we look at a team like Canada, who's one place above in the world rankings, Canada's never had more professional rugby players.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to be dealing with, I think.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the key with Namibia. They just need to make sure there's a pathway for players to be professional and actually have the time to kind of nurture their game and make sure that they can perform at a high level, because otherwise they're going to World Cups and just getting better. So it doesn't actually do anything for them. If
anything, just knocks confidence.
It will knock them down the world rankings as a result.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But yeah, I do think it'd be interesting to see how they go on Sunday. If they start well, they can really maybe cause an upset against Italy, but I do think Italy will have too much of them. But it will be an interesting one. That ridiculous time no one. I think that is like quarter past 6 maybe, or even earlier maybe.
I'll be watching it regardless.
Yes, I thought you might be watching it regardless.
Just love Italy versus Namibia.
Well, you'd be analysing them for Canada, won't you?
Yeah, I will. I'll be sending texts to head coaches and stuff like that. But you can introduce Canada. I'm
literally the doors to the right of Joe. I might just walk out for this bit. So yeah, Canada, as Joe has mentioned, they are one place in 22nd in the world. Preparations, Joe, I see a lot of losses there.
It's about performances in the run up to the World Cup, though.
Yeah.
But the thing, to be fair,
positive spin on it.
So I did the analysis piece for the first game, which was the 1947 loss versus USA. Awful game.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, I was up at 2 a.m. to watch that one. True fan. Someone sent me the new kit, by the way. And then the loss against Fiji actually wasn't as bad as it looks.
No, I think you mentioned that to me. I think you mentioned it. Why did you think it was not as bad as the USA game? Just because
it was something like 6-3 at half time.
Okay.
So
a lot more competitive.
Yeah, and then you actually go to the next game. You talk about the game against Tonga, where it was a 23-33 loss. They were 10-23 down at half time. So to actually bring it back into contention like that, I think they actually were 3 points off Tonga at one point at the end. And you've got to remember, all these games, these 2 middle games against Fiji and Tonga, they were played out in Fiji.
Yeah, that's true.
So they had a lot to contend with.
Does, obviously, that last result when they played USA again, is that sort of a positive as well, considering how bad they were in the first?
That was a really close game at BC. So actually, I do think for Canada, it's very close, because you've got to remember now, the USA and Canada are basically on equal playing fields in terms of having players professional.
Because of the MLR, yeah.
Because of the MLR. And basically that's essentially the thing. They've never had more professional players. I spoke to Matt Heaton about it.
Yeah.
And he's been at Mowden Park. I think it's Mowden, is it Mowden?
I've been covering national leagues for about 4 years, and I still don't know which. I still switch between the two. So
yeah, so he's been there for a bit. He's moving club. I don't think it's officially been announced, but I do know where he's off to. Insider, and yeah, so that's what they've got to contend with. But the guys are getting more professional, and they're getting the time in the gym to actually evaluate what's going on. They have the analysis session. They're learning more as rugby players. And someone like Kingsley Jones coming in, who has the wherewithal to bring in the likes of Richard Wigglesworth as a defence.
I think that's brilliant.
That's such a good move. Boris Stankovic from Leicester as a scrum coach, and as well as I can't even remember, but the Cardiff Blues Academy director is actually doing the attack. So, it's looking good for them. And I think actually, I won't necessarily say they'll beat. Wow.
Again, it's the first game for them as well. I think if you look at this pool, all the first games are massively important for all the teams, and they're playing Italy. Do you give them a chance?
I do, because I think Italy will have just come off a big game against Namibia, and they'll be playing South Africa 8 days later.
Let me just double check what time that game is, because if they win, Joe will not be doing any work that day. He'll be probably drinking a couple of beers at, let's double check this, 8:45. It's not too bad.
I'm in the office, so I won't be able to drink. I'm watching the England game with you afterwards.
Well, let's just say Joe won't be there. He'll be down the pub in Preston somewhere.
There's one just up the road. But yeah, so that's kind of it for Pool B. Sorry for the noisiness there that kind of came in from me. Big, it's a big passion point from me.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is watching Canada and stuff. So
got to fly the flag for the other nations, haven't we, Joe?
Oh mate, tier 2 all the way. Tier 2 all the way. Yeah. So now we've moved on to Pool C. I don't actually think we have any video for this little section. I don't know about you.
No, we don't, mate.
No, that's a shame. So we might as well just kind of get straight back into it. So Pool C has got England, France, Argentina, the USA, and Tonga. It's been covered by Ben Mercer.
Yeah.
I'm covering Pool B, by the way. That's the other thing we should probably mention. I get away with that on the podcast. Can't really get away with that in the video. But yeah, so what have we got? We will start off by looking at England.
Yeah.
Your home nation.
Yes.
I don't know. The thing is with England, they've had, I'd say, quite an up and down pre-season.
Yeah, I'd say so. I thought the Wales and Ireland game, I thought Wales both games at Twickenham, was going to say, were impressive. I thought they learnt a lot from both games. England. Obviously the Wales game the first game was a lot of experimenting, I think, in terms of the starting 15 from Eddie, and then that Ireland game was great to see Manu and sort of that axis again. The Wales and Cardiff game was played like a gritty old Test match, wasn't it? It was like Wales just wanted to win, and I think because England had taken their unbeaten record off them, they just wanted to grind out the win in any way, shape or form, and England just looked very blunt. And the first half against Italy at St James's Park was
boring.
It was, yeah. England again, it would look very blunt. It was one-dimensional. It was Farrell trying to find May on the wing, and England didn't have any sort of creativity. Then after the break, whatever was said at half time, England were much better. And I think that's going to have to be a key, because if you look at those Ireland game at Twickenham and the Wales game at Twickenham, they started fast, and England will have to start fast, I think, in these games, especially against your Argentinas and your France, who are going to be close to trying to compete for top spot in the group with England. But I think that will be the key for Eddie Jones to start fast and just use what they do best, which is the power of the ball carriers. That's what they've got to use to advantage. It's nothing, rocket science. It's simple, and we've seen it against Wales. We saw it against Ireland. It's simple and it works effectively. So if England can get those basics absolutely spot on and polished, then I feel they have absolutely no problem in this pool. I know you were going to disagree with me because you do think USA are going to beat England, Joe, but I just don't think they're going to have a problem getting out of the pool.
The thing is, I did think that, and then I saw they've got a massive gap in between their game against Argentina and the USA. So I was kind of, I'm now maybe I'm not backtracking. I'm kind of reconsidering whether I should backtrack or not. However, I do feel confident the USA will have a very good performance in that game. I don't know what it is that makes me think that. But the key game probably in the pool is against France, who are number 8 in the world, and they've had 2 wins in the run up to the World Cup, but both of them were in France. And then contrast that to the 14-17 loss at Murrayfield. It doesn't seem like, it seems like a more settled France side than we have had in previous years.
When we spoke to Ben Mercer, who's governing this pool, he's obviously played out in France during his career. He said the same. He said they're a lot more settled. They've got a bit more of a direction. There is sprinkling of stardust across the pitch that can really carry them. And that's the thing with France. They were poor Six Nations. Some of the selections, and they just looked all over the place. It was just a shambles against England at Twickenham, if I remember correctly. Some of the tries that Johnny May was allowed to score, it was just completely wide open at fullback.
But when they started selecting Roman Ntamack at 10 and Dupont at 9, it seemed like they had a bit more settled pairing.
Yes, and just stick with it now. Don't start.
I think they have been changing it up a bit in this pre-season, which could explain some of the losses.
I mean, sort of that's sort of what the warm-up games are for. If you want to try and test something out, then go with it. But I think France now, compared to France, when was it? When the Six Nations finished, like March time, so 6 months ago. They are going to be a lot more confident. I think going into this, they'll think, well, hang on a minute, let's let people keep saying we're not as good as we're making out to be. We can be unpredictable. Let's just focus on what we've done really well with under this new regime and continue to be settled. And France, on the day, they could really test England, like you say, Joe. And that final game is going to be could be a crucial one, and I think they'll probably beat Argentina as well in their first game. So France are going to be definitely ones to watch out for, and don't be surprised if they make the last four of this competition.
Talk about Argentina absolutely reeling in the world rankings, number 11. When you think this is a team that finished 4th overall at last World Cup, I think they played at the Olympic Stadium?
Yes, I was there, Joe.
Oh.
South Africa. Was it Brighton? Might have been Abana's last game or his 100th try.
And then he scored. Oh no, he broke the World Rugby.
That was it.
The World Cup record for try scoring.
Yes.
As I remember. I don't think I watched the game, but they've had just a horrific lead up to the World Cup, losing to New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and South Africa again.
Yeah.
That's not even. That's really bad. Don't seem like they've got much direction.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because they all the talk was because of how well the franchise has done in Super Rugby, and I'm not going to say the Jaguars is
Jaguares.
Yes, I'll go with that. That's the South American Latin.
Sí, porque yo hablo español.
That what he said. And all the positivity around that, and the way sort of Argentina have been able to progress, especially since the 2015 World Cup, and etc. To perform like they did in the Rugby Championship is not the best run of form to be coming into the World Cup. I think, I can't remember the start off the top of my head, I wish I could, but they've not won now for 8 or 9 games, I think it is. So to carry that into the World Cup in a pool where they're going to be challenging France for that second spot, I think personally, it could be tough for them, and that's why I do think France will beat Argentina on Saturday.
Yeah, the other funny thing with Argentina is they started to re-allow selection from players overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Santiago Cordero has a wonderful rugby championship, so does Facundo Ita. Just not selected.
I mean, the uproar, well, not the uproar, but some of the people who we follow on TRU's Twitter are obviously so clued up about rugby, and they just absolutely could not believe Cordero wasn't in the squad.
Cordero is one of the top meter makers in the Premiership last season, and I saw him play a couple of times for Chiefs, and obviously we've seen him play for Argentina on numerous occasions. One of the best wingers I've ever seen.
I think if you don't know much about rugby and you watched him last season in the Premiership, you'd know he's good. So who does he play for Argentina? He would definitely be in the team. So for him not to be in the team for this World Cup is a staggering omission. And I hopefully for those Argentina players and everyone involved with the team that won't come back to bite them.
Yeah, and now just 2 places off Argentina in the world rankings is the USA. Another team I know fairly well. Mm-hmm. We kind of mentioned before when we were talking about Canada, they beat Canada twice, 47-19 and then 20-15, both home and away. But then they've also beaten Samoa 13 points to 10 2 years in a row. They've beaten them with the last kick of the game, and then a 34-20 loss to Japan in Fiji.
Yeah, you mentioned there, Joe. Obviously, you know a little bit more about them, but I saw them quite a bit in 2015.
Okay, yeah.
During the World Cup, and I know a lot of time has passed since then, but I was quite impressed by sort of the way they wanted to play the game, and I know one of the standout things for them over the last 4 years has been that win they got against Scotland. That first sort of tier 1 nation that they've been able to beat. But there is a plan. You can see the game's growing over there. You've spoken to all your contacts over there. TRU've got a number of people who are involved with USA Rugby who we've been able to speak to, and you can tell it's growing. Obviously the sevens sort of game is the key vocal point of that in the last few years. Have been absolutely superb, and I think now what they want to try and do is translate that into the 15 game as much as possible, because they have been, you can see it's growing, the game is growing over there, and if USA can try and, if Joe might be right, they can cause an upset against England. It's their first game. It's, we're looking at it, it's 6 days into the tournament, so they've got a lot more time to prepare for it. So if they can cause an upset against England, or maybe even Argentina in that penultimate game, that could be where they're going to be trying to target that third place, as we mentioned previously with some other teams. So that'd be interesting, Joe. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone you think we should be looking out for in the USA squad, or...
I'd definitely say, obviously Will Hooley of course plays for Bedford Blues in the Championship. Another guy I'd say to look out for is probably Paul Mullen, the tight head prop. Not obviously the most glamorous position in the world, but Paul it was a Munster youth player before heading out to the States, and I think he's played for Newcastle Falcons and Doncaster Knights in between it all, and he's gone back to the States to play for the Houston Sabercats. I think he's one of those players that's actually really quite adept in his position. Would he maybe get in the Ireland squad? Maybe not, but he's been given the opportunity to play international rugby for the USA. Not on residency, I should say. Actually, he does qualify legitimately in a bit of a different way to everyone else. No, I think he's going to have a great World Cup. Obviously, there's loads of names we could talk that we know in the Premiership. AJ McGinty probably been the highlight of one of them. But no, I think the USA are going to have a good tournament. I think a lot of people are going to be impressed. And yeah, I think I'd say definitely watch out for that first game against England.
Yeah, I can't wait till England beat them. And then I'll just be, all of us in the office will be texting Joe like, you've said it.
We're going to be here, Chris. We're going to be together. We're going to be watching the game.
We'll be here.
Yeah, the final team in that pool is Tonga, who we have to admit don't know much about.
No, and when we were speaking to Ben Mercy, he was saying they've probably not got a chance. He thinks they're the weakest sort of Islander team in the competition. You're looking at those results you've written there, Joe. You know, defeats to Samoa, that heavy defeat to Japan. Obviously the win against Canada. But then their preparations with that 92-7 defeat to New Zealand isn't great. You know, we saw they can step it up, and like similarly to Samoa, like we said, they can step it up when the World Cup comes around. But I just, in that pool, and you know, we say in USA they could have a good tournament with Argentina, France and England. I just can't see them getting much joy from Pool C, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, their first game is against Tonga this Sunday. Oh no, their first game is against England this Sunday, sorry. And then they play Argentina.
That order of games as well, Joe.
It's rough.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, 6 days later, you say Argentina, then they've got France. It's sort of, if they maybe played USA first, I don't know. But yeah, it's a tough sort of scheduling for them.
Well, you actually got to look, in comparison to some of the other teams, they've got a really kind of rough run of games. They've got 6 days in between their first 2 games, and they've got 8 days between the game against Argentina and France. And then just, another 7 days between the one against the USA.
Yeah, not much rest, but...
Yeah, it's going to be pretty rough for Tonga, but we, of course, wish them all the best. Right, let's move on to the next pool. Right, on to Pool D now, and we have clips from Australia's Taquele, Naiyavaro, as well as Wales' Dai Young, about how they think their teams are going to fare in the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, of course, and talk about Australia, of course, the country you represented a few times. I mean, I don't think keeping up to date with what they've been up to. I mean, are you happy with how they've been performing recently?
No, I mean, they played really well. I mean, last week before with the All Blacks, and there was a big score that they put on against the ABs, which is really a bit not surprising, but really good, of just to show how they've bounced back from what they've been through. But I think going to the World Cup, and I have faith in them that they will work hard, and they always do, turn up in the World Cup into big competitions. And I think for me, it's just I'm proud of how they've come this way, and just probably wish them all the best in it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's going to be an interesting season in the Prem, obviously, because the World Cup, everyone's going to start later, finish later. It's going to cut into summer holidays a bit, isn't it, really? But I mean, of course, you must be excited for the new season to start. I can't remember who your first game's against, unfortunately, in the Premiership. But I mean, you must be when it gets to October, you must start really anticipating things.
Yeah. I mean, now is. I mean, it will get closer when we get into it, but I think for now, now I can't believe that it's already 7 weeks of pre-season gone, and it was just like that. I mean, then now we'll be looking into playing our first game again. So, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, it's coming really, really quick. But no, I mean, that's what we train for. That's what we work hard for, and I mean, week in, week out. So, it shouldn't be a problem. I think it's just getting our job done in the field.
Yeah, and you ended last season with playing for the representative side against the Barbarians. I mean, that was what was it? How many times have you played for Barbars before that? It was right?
Was the 6th one.
Do you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, man. I always put my hand up for Barbars, and it's one of the most funnest week that I've always been a part of. And I mean, it's not just that the training is not as tough or anything like that, but it's just, I think we get back to the reason why we play rugby. We enjoy it. We just go out there and have fun. Like, nothing's really planned. You know, it's all just out there, which is why you enjoy rugby. And yeah, I think that's why I always enjoy and put my hand up for Barbars anytime I can.
Wales, your nation, of course, number 1 in the world. I mean, do you think that's the best prep for them going into a Rugby World Cup?
Well, Warren's a very experienced coach. I don't think he'll play too much on his mind, but it's always better to be number 1 than number 10, isn't it? Really, I think, and you get it. They've earned that tag, so fair play to them. They deserve it. But whoever wins the World Cup will be the best team in the world. Whether that's ranked 1, 6, 8 doesn't really matter, but it's far better to go into a World Cup with that confidence that you're ranked number one. So, you know, certainly I would take that if I was in. I'm sure Warren will as well. But really, don't think it changes too much in the focus. It won't change too much in the preparation.
Yeah, you're looking forward to watching Wales at the World Cup as well?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the World Cup. I think it's a little bit open, far more sort of open than it has been, you know, in the past. I still think it's a brave man that's going to bet against New Zealand, but in saying that, I do think they've got competitive teams. South Africa, to me, are looking really good. And obviously, you've got the Northern Hemisphere teams in, you know, England starting to really hit this strap. You know, Wales are ranked number one in the world. Ireland, can you write Ireland off? Although they're not looking good at the minute, they've proved in the past. And France, you never know what you get with France. So, to me, it's a real open World Cup. It's a brave man to bet against New Zealand, but I think the betting will be spread more this World Cup than it probably ever has.
Yes, now this is Chris Heal's pool.
It is.
You drew the short straw, knew nothing about it.
I wouldn't say short straw at all, Joe. I think it's probably the most open in terms of potential upsets, I think.
Georgia, to be fair.
To be fair,
it's not a bad pool.
I'm not going to lie, but when we got it, I was just like, right, I'm going to have to do some research on especially Georgia and Uruguay, but listening to some of the stuff that's come out over the last sort of 2-3 weeks or about Fiji, how excited everyone is by them, that's why I think it's, you know, the most open pool. If you go about it that way. So really looking forward to covering this one, and what a game to kick it off with Australia-Fiji.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the home side in that one. Australia, they've had mixed run up to the tournament, losing South Africa and New Zealand. New Zealand, that we have to say that was a 36-0 loss, as well as but they beat New Zealand quite heavily in Bledisloe the week before, and then a fairly tidy win over Samoa.
Yeah, I think, you know, that win against New Zealand, obviously the red card and etc. playing into their hands, but going back to what we said before, Joe, if you make New Zealand angry, they'll come at you, and I think that's exactly what happened to Australia. They just didn't seem to have any sort of game plan to try and combat it. They were on the back foot, and they couldn't really get going in that game against New Zealand as they were able to in the reverse game. So it's interesting, you know, Australia have been one of those teams which have maybe produced a good result here and there, but then a couple of bad results said, well, we're not going to be in that top bracket to really challenge. I don't think they are as good as your South Africas, your Englands, your Irelands, your New Zealands. I know they beat them, but I just don't think they are, and Wales, sorry to put them in there, I don't think they are in the same bracket at the moment. And it's, you know, to say Australia aren't in that same bracket when they were in the final 4 years ago, might be, some people may disagree, but the way sort of they've been able to progress from that, I've not really seen too much from them, especially over the last year or so. So that's why I think that Fiji game is going to be quite a key one on Saturday.
Yeah, and apparently they've changed a lot of their combinations as well, have Australia, which I've obviously not really seen much of. But it's interesting in the Lutz World Cup to be changing stuff like Bernard Foley. Has he been consistently dropped? I can't remember.
No, I think he's been playing.
Has he been playing? But is Leland Fanu starting?
I think so.
These are the rumours I've heard.
Yeah.
And they are true. So the other team, a of the team, not the other team, in that pool is Wales, who are number 5 in the world, which is bizarre considering they were number 1 in the world just 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and going back to what we said before, world rankings
mean nothing.
Don't mean much.
But we say them for the content.
Yes, 5th in the world. You're looking at those, a lot of L's next to those sort of games he played in the warm-ups. Back-to-back defeats against Ireland, losing to England at Twickenham in their opening warm-up match, and obviously the win at Cardiff in between that. I think looking at that, you'd have to say Wales might be a bit concerned.
Well, what we could say is Wales did not play any good rugby in their Grand Slam Six Nations win earlier this year. Realistically, I said they were going to win because I just didn't believe anyone else to win it. I thought Wales were on a roll, and that's all it takes. But then everyone was going on about before that England game, they've not lost for a year, and this, that, and the other. And then as soon as they come up against England at Twickenham, it's a 33-19 loss.
Yeah. These results, they will say, well, the warm-up games, we've not played again, we've not played well, we didn't play well in the Six Nations, and they might just be keeping the powder dry, and we'll see the whole shebang for Wales and their opening game on the Monday against Georgia. But I do think they, especially in that second game against Ireland, there might be a little bit of concern about how easy it was for Ireland to try and create chances. Wales weren't as disciplined as I think they would like to have been in that game.
Yeah.
But Wales being Wales, they will put that to one side. They built a great squad. They've got so much depth from the Warren Gatland, and again, it's similar to Steve Hampton. It's his final World Cup with Wales.
Yeah.
He will want to try and take that next step with them after getting close in 2011. And they would have been disappointed to fall in the knockout stages as well in 2015. So Wales, I think, will top the pool. I do think they'll top that pool. I know that the past games against Australia favour the Wallabies a lot.
Yes.
But I do think Wales will top Pool D, and I do think the warm-up games, yes, the results weren't bad, but I don't think we saw Wales with all guns blazing.
Yeah, and they kick off against Georgia at 11:15 on Monday morning. So
nice way to start the week.
You'll be well up for that one, and I'll be up at 6 o'clock to watch everyone else. So yeah, Georgia, pretty low-key run up to the World Cup, losing at Scotland twice, probably not the most surprising things in the world. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about Georgia other than they're supposedly a very good team. You're talking to Graham Roundtree the day after we record this.
Yeah.
And
looking forward to that.
His quotes will be included in the Talking Rugby Union podcast that we're also starting to record today.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to speaking to him because there's a lot of talk about how Georgia are sort of the seventh nation, if you like, in the Northern Hemisphere, behind the normal Six Nations, how they would perform well against Italy and they could really challenge Italy for that Six Nations spot. So they are ones to watch out for. We know how strong they are up front. It's pretty much what they base the game on. We saw actually in the Under-20 World Championship they've got some really exciting young players coming through, so there is that sort of depth there and sort of pathway for these players to come into the national team. And it'd be interesting speaking to Graham when I do speak to him tomorrow or the day after. It's considering that they've got this Wales-Australia pool and everyone's sort of highlighting Fiji, maybe Georgia will feel like, hang on a minute, no, we can maybe challenge and cause an upset as well. But I do think it could be a powerful performance, and Georgia will be writing that quite a few times during the next month or two.
Yeah, and now everyone's favourite islanders, the Fijians, number 9 in the world, as we come into this Rugby World Cup. They've had, I'd say, I'm just looking at the games now, they lost to Japan, but then it seems like they're beating Canada, Samoa and Tonga in the run-up to the World Cup. Fiji, always one of those teams to look out for come World Cup because of the flair, because of the just nice blokes.
I mean, how exciting have Fiji been watching the Sevens? I know how much you love the Sevens, Joe, and they're just an unbelievable team since winning the gold medal in the Olympics in 2016, and also in the podcast we've got a little bit with Ben Ryan, and he talks so glowingly about this team, and he says the fact that playing Australia first he thinks is a brilliant sort of way for Fiji to start, because they know that it's such a big game, they can get up for it, and if they do get a result, that gives them that unbelievable chance of making the quarterfinals. And he thinks they will. Spoiler alert, he thinks they will get the quarterfinals.
Cool.
But the amount of talent they've got, it's just remarkable across, those backs. If they are unleashed, and if Australia do try to fling it about a bit and not tighten it up, Fiji will exploit it, I think, in that opening game. But they've got some absolutely unbelievable talent, Fiji, and they're certainly going to be an exciting team to watch. And if you don't follow a team, I think maybe Fiji could be the one.
Yeah, just look out for Naiyavaro and Mata, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. Was it Rababara or something?
Radharada,
that's it. I've been given Fiji and I can't pronounce any names, and Georgia as well. But he scored an unbelievable.
Georgia's going to be so much fun.
Georgia, Uruguay possibly as well.
You're going for
yeah. But yeah, he scored a ridiculous amount of tries in the NRL, I think, as well. So he's one of those players who you're just going to watch out for, and across the team. I mean, Josh Tuisova as well is going to be one, and Josh Matafasi's obviously in there, Newcastle Falcon for Joe. So yeah, unbelievable amount of talent in the team, and I'm actually really looking forward to getting up at 5 o'clock on Saturday morning to tune into Australia versus Fiji.
Oh, is that what it is?
5:45 kick-off, I think it is.
Rough.
So
that is rough.
A bit of preparation beforehand, but no, it's going to be an exciting game, and for me, arguably the game of the weekend.
Yeah, and we'll move on to the final team in this pool. Uruguay, who admittedly we're not massively sure on, but what we can say is they beat Russia fairly comfortably, 48 points to 26. They lost to Namibia 28 points to 30, and then they lost to Spain who probably should have been at the World Cup if it wasn't for some events that took place
Was that a referee?
against Belgium with a Romanian referee.
Yes.
So obviously, having talked to a couple of guys in Spain, I think they're pretty annoyed they're not at the World Cup. But maybe they should be. They beat Uruguay. Uruguay, of course. Well, not of course. Some people might not know this. They beat Canada twice in the run up to the World Cup for qualification, meaning that Canada had to play in the repechage tournament. I should be wearing the other shirt there, and it's going to be difficult for them.
It is. It is going to be really difficult. But as I've mentioned and highlighted for some other teams, their fixtures have come in quite a nice order for them. I think if they really want to sort of have that one game, that sort of that Japan had in 2015, and they're going to have that one game which they'll remember, and it'd be a fantastic achievement for them. It could come either against Fiji or Georgia in those first two games. I think Australia and Wales are going to have too much for them. Like, those two games are done and dusted. Georgia, I think, may have too much of them up front, and Fiji maybe in terms of their speed and their intelligence.
And they've got it's not too long between those 4 games.
4 days you've got Joe between.
He's worrying about the depth, isn't it?
Yeah, between Fiji and Georgia, those games. So, yeah, I can't see them really making too many waves in the in Pool D, but I'm ready to be proved wrong.
What I do know is they've got more professional players than ever before, because Major League Rugby, of course, has opened up a lot of avenues for people to be playing in North America, South America, whatever. So a lot of those guys play for like Toronto and. Well, which is bizarre because of how far away it is, and then a lot of them play for Austin and teams like that.
But that's massively positive, isn't it?
Oh,
these guys are playing professional rugby, and hopefully we get to see maybe the small benefits from it, and see these lads have definitely improved and definitely kicked on with the time in America. But that's only positive for the game in Uruguay, I think.
Yeah. So that's kind of the end of Pool D, and I'll be back in a second with an outro. Well, there you have it. We very much hope that you've enjoyed this Talking Rugby Union preview video of the Rugby World Cup pool stages. You can keep up with Talking Rugby Union's World Cup coverage by visiting our website, which is www.talkingrugbyunion.co.uk, visiting Twitter @TalkRugbyUnion, Instagram is @TalkingRugbyUnion, and if you just type in Talking Rugby Union into the bar on Facebook, I'm sure you'll find us fairly sharpish. We very much hope that you like this video, because we're hoping to bring you a whole load more during the Rugby World Cup period, including live watch-alongs of some of the England games, but not showing any of the England games ITV. Don't worry about that. We'll play nice. But yeah, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment and subscribe, and if you're watching this on Instagram TV, where I think it's going to be going as well, we very much hope that you follow or like or just try and keep up to date with it as best as possible, because we'll be posting everything, and we really want to be doing a whole load of this kind of stuff during the Rugby World Cup period. There'll be a podcast which is very similar to this video that will be available to listen to from Wednesday the 18th and then Thursday the 19th, so we're splitting it up into 2 halves. But yeah, we very much hope you enjoyed the Rugby World Cup from wherever you are watching it. But bye for now.